Hey everyone, welcome back. Chris Jameson, SF Lending, your hard money lender for life. Now we're going to go through Hard Money 204, making offers. This is how to make strong offers in a competitive market to be able to compete with cash buyers. One option, close fast. If you're working with a good local lender, oftentimes they can close in as little as 3 to 5 days. I like to say 5 to 10 on average just to be safe. But if you have a good relationship with a lender and they can act quickly, you can close in 3 to 5 days to compete with cash offers. If you're working with a national lender, that may be more of a challenge, but once you get applications and things into them to get rid of all the busy work up front, then you'll be able to increase the speed in which you can close. Next, offer more earnest money. So if you're making offers on the MLS or listed properties, you can offer more earnest money to be able to make it a more serious offer. There's a lot of times where people are going in and putting $10 down, $100 down, $1,000 earnest money. If you can walk in there and offer 25% or 10% or $5,000 earnest, then the seller is going to take you a lot more serious with your offer. Next, offer no inspection or no option period. This too is going to increase the strength of your offer. If you've got multiple offers on the table and you're a seller, you've got one option with an inspection period, one with a 10-day option period, and one with no inspection and no option period. All other terms are the same. You're going to go with the offer that has no inspection and no option period. So that as well can increase the strength of your offer. No financing contingency. This is another one. Oftentimes, if you're making an offer on that, I think page 1 of the TREC contract, it lists the amount down, cash, finance, and total sales price. The next section below that will list if there's a financing contingency. If you're working with a lender and have a good relationship with them, you send them the deal up front, they've looked at it, ran comps, have a good understanding of roughly what your cash out of pocket is, then you can take out that financing contingency again because it weakens your offer. You can go in with more earnest money, no option period, no inspection period, no financing contingency, and make your offer, even though it's financed, a heck of a lot stronger and compete with some of these cash buyers. Lastly, offer to pay all the normal closing costs. This is a strategy that a lot of wholesalers use that are buying properties from distressed sellers. They will offer to pay all the closing costs to ease the burden on the seller of paying for these different things because a lot of people don't know what those costs are. A lot of normal home buyers don't know what those costs are and think that they can be a lot more than they actually end up being. These costs can be anywhere from 1 to 1.5% or maybe half to 1.5% of the sales price, the purchase price. So it's not a lot of money, but again, it increases the strength of your offer. If you're buying from a wholesaler, the first thing you want to do is be able to reference check the wholesaler. Talk to your lender. Do they know who these people are? Are they credible? Do they have a good reputation? How many deals do they do? Are they independent? Are they a group? Are they kind of institutional or larger type wholesale operations? You need to be able to verify that, who you're buying from before getting into a deal. Most of the time, wholesale transactions have no inspection period. So you want to be able to know what you're doing, getting out to the property, looking at it. If you don't feel comfortable making a decision on a wholesale property, going out to it, and analyzing the rehab numbers yourself, then don't pull the trigger. You want to be able to gain that experience with time. Once you feel comfortable running rehab numbers, you can get a better idea of what your out-of-pocket is at the end of the deal to be able to make a good determination on if the deal is worth buying or not. But if you don't feel comfortable running rehabs, have your contractor go out there. If you're serious about buying the deal, take them out to, sometimes there'll be group showings, or if the property's on lockbox or vacant, whatever, take your contractor out there so you can get firm rehab numbers up front to help you make a better decision on buying the property or not. Wholesale deals typically have non-refundable deposits. That's different than earnest money. If you're buying a property off MLS or listed that has a realtor representation on it, then typically there's earnest money that's sent to title company. Earnest money is refundable. If for any reason you back out of the contract or the deal during inspection period, option period, financing contingency period, anything like that. With a wholesale deal, the non-refundable deposit is non-refundable, except times when there's clouded title, they can't get clear title, things like that. which is also important, which also brings me back to my first point of making sure you vet the wholesaler and reference check them to see if clouded title actually comes up, will you get your non-refundable earnest money back or non-refundable deposit back? You may want to take caution if the wholesaler is also a lender. The reason being, if the wholesaler is trying to sell you on a value, most of the time the wholesaler values, and not to dig on wholesalers at all, I love wholesalers, buy from them and work with them all the time, but the stereotypical wholesaler is going to kind of push that ARV a little bit to be a little more aggressive or a little bit more opportunistic of what you can get out of that property. If they're a lender and a wholesaler, then they're probably most likely going to hit that number that they say that it's worth, when in reality it may not be the value that they're saying. Working with a third-party lender separated from the wholesaler, you're going to get a second set of opinion or a second set of eyes on the deal and get a different opinion that may be better, or that may be in your best interest. Which takes me to my next point. Perform your own due diligence. Don't rely on anyone's numbers. You want to be able to know, work with your lender and know more accurately what the ARV is going to be and what the rehab is most likely going to shake out to be as well. You don't want to overlook things on the rehab, like I mentioned before, comparing properties that have laminate countertops and vinyl plank flooring with a set of comps that has granite countertops, hardwood flooring, recessed can lights everywhere, and things like that. You want to compare apples to apples to get your ARV because not all values are created equally. Lastly, don't get sold on upside potential. You want to be conservative and realistic with your numbers. In hot markets, areas continue to appreciate, and properties, you can probably sell them for more, but you don't want to use pending sales or new listings as comps because the market could change in a heartbeat, and then you're stuck with a property that you were thinking you could sell for more in the future, when in reality, the day that you close it, you need to know what it's worth at that point. So my personal strategy is to not use best case scenario decision making. What I mean by that is being conservative. You don't want to look at a deal and analyze it. Best case scenario, I can make X, or if this happens, I can make Y. You want to be able to separate yourself from the emotion of buying and thinking what you can get out of it. In analyzing a deal, worst case scenario, I'm going to make X. So then if things change and there's upside in the deal, then you can reap those rewards without as much downside risk. You want to factor in your true buying costs. That's hard money points, closing fees, lender fees, title fees, property insurance, survey, insurance, appraisal, prepaid interest, if you're paying closing costs for the seller, things like that. You want to be able to factor in all of your closing costs, your true closing costs, not the HGTV. I bought a house for 100, I rehabbed it for 50, I sold it for 200, I made 50. Those aren't real numbers. You need to understand the true buying costs, the true holding costs. That's your hard money interest payments, your taxes, your insurance, your maintenance that's going to go ongoing past the point of renovation, like mowing the yard or doing the trash or different things like that, that can be an ongoing expense, utilities. Lastly, your true selling costs, right? So there are costs associated with selling the property too. You got your realtor agent, you've got your listing agent, you got your seller agent, you've got your buyer concessions. Before getting into a deal, talk to your lender. There's MLS information that they can pull that says if there were seller concessions given in an area. If seller concessions are normal, there's a sales price of $250,000, but the going norm is $5,000 concessions across the board for all your comps. You want to be able to overlay that $250 sale, but also understand that there's 5,000 concessions that is par for the course in the area. The true net sales price is going to be $245. So you've got commissions, you've got concessions, you've got inspection repairs. So I've never sold a property that I've had or heard of one where there's been an inspection by the buyer and nothing has came back on the inspection report. Okay, so you have to figure in something for inspection repairs. Also consider days on market. So running your holding costs calculation, you want to know, is this area 90 days on market? If I do the rehab right, can I get it sold in 7 days, 10 days, 15 days? There's a lot of data in the MLS. When you pull comps, you can figure out what the days on market are in an area to better know how long you're going to hold properties through the loan process, so you can get better numbers and understand your out-of-pocket better. Like I mentioned before, don't use new listings or pending listings. It's a good idea to understand where a market is going and what your potential could be. But again, not using best case decision making. If there is upside, then you can reap that on the reward, but don't make that a basis of your determination to buy the deal or not. As I mentioned, I've never seen an inspection come back without any required repairs or recommended repairs. I've never seen, rarely have I seen a rehab come in on budget. So be able to set aside a little bit of money extra for your rehab. 10% is usually pretty good. So if you have a $40,000 rehab, set aside an extra $4,000 for unknowns, because once you get in the rehab process, you open walls, you tear out floors, you look at subfloors, different things with the foundation or rotted beams or in the attic or insulation, things like that you might not necessarily see walking the property the first time. It's good to have a little bit of a buffer in that rehab estimate to better prepare yourself if something does come up. If it doesn't come up, great. You protected yourself against it. It didn't happen. Now you've still got that money in your pocket or in the deal, and you'll get it back when you sell the property. Also, rehabs typically don't get finished on time. If you're running the rehab yourself, you can oftentimes lose days, sometimes weeks, if you're trying to schedule out all the subs yourself. If you're running the foundation crew, you're running the roofers, you're running the framers, electrician, HVAC, plumbers, different trades, then you should prepare a little bit extra time for the rehab to get completed, and that's going to extend the duration that you're in that hard money loan, or even if you're buying cash, the duration of that deal and the total time to market. Lastly, with your comps, you want to factor in where the property is located. Is it located near busy roads, on busy roads, next to commercial, behind commercial, across from a park, there's across from a school? There's good things and bad things. Is it on a green belt? Does it have empty lots behind it or next to it, or vacant houses or boarded up houses, or very nice houses, very good curb appeal, very nice neighbors, things like that. All of those items aren't necessarily going to affect the value. A green belt would affect it positively. Being on a busy road would impact it negatively. But the surrounding areas, being across from a vacant land or boarded up house versus having very nice neighbors and well-kept houses, that's more going to influence desirability and days on market when you go to sell the property. So maybe increase your days on market a little bit if you have bad factors, and decrease days on market, your expected days on market, if you have positive things directly around you. Lastly, you want to speak to your lender before going under contract. Unless you have a lot of experience, you feel comfortable with your analysis and you work well with your lender, you feel fine pulling the trigger on your own, that's completely fine. A lot of people get to that point after doing several deals. If you haven't done a lot of deals, definitely speak to your lender before going under contract. They're going to help you verify your ARV. So they're going to run comps and make sure that you can get a better idea of what your expectations are. They're going to run ARV and help you get a better understanding of what your potential sales price could be, or what your out-of-pocket could be. The basis for all your numbers really come from two things. That's your ARV and your rehab. They are also going to help you with your rehab. Is your scope of work similar to the flip level comps that you want to use to maximize your profit potential or your sales price? They're going to give you a reference check on the wholesaler if you're working with a wholesaler. Overall, this is going to help you get a better idea of your cash to close. This is going to set your expectations up front so that you and your lender are on the same page. You don't want to be going into a deal thinking you're going to be $5,000 to $10,000 out of pocket when your numbers actually end up being $20,000 to $25,000. You want to have those expectations set up front so that you can make a better decision on buying deals. Also, they're going to run through your estimated out-of-pocket, your cash out-of-pocket, or your OOPS spending, out-of-pocket spending. to determine if you have the ability to even buy the deal. And lastly, that'll help you get estimated returns and profitability on the flips or the rentals that you're buying. That concludes Hard Money 204, Making Offers. If you have any questions at all, please check out our website, fill out the form, www.sflending.com. Thanks.